What's up guys, welcome to Munchkins Gaming, where we take your gaming to the next level. This is Munchkins logging in to bring you another Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia video, and welcome back to another video guide. In today's video, we are going to take a look at Guy's Lost Chapter Lufenia Plus fight. And before we do start, like always, like and subscribe if you haven't already. It does help the channel, guys. And one more thing before we actually start is I do have an announcement near the end of this video, so please stay tuned. It is very important on this channel on what's going to happen in the near future. With that in mind, let's go ahead and start this video. Alright guys, so we'll start this off in how you're going to deal with the Lufenia Orb as always. Now the Lufenia Orb will appear at the start of the battle and will disappear once you hit less than 80% and will reappear once you hit less than 50%. You get one Lufenia Orb counter when the target takes any earth type damage. Now you do get 5 if the target takes a higher HP damage due to a debuff. So a couple of characters here, Guy and Gao, are actually the only earth elemental enchanters that we have in game right now. So there's not a lot of choices here, although there are some characters that can use earth based attacks. These two are probably the go-to if you are planning to use earth elemental attacks. Now the other characters which can increase the HP damage secondary to a debuff are Agrias, Gabranth, and Sync. Now some people might think that Kurosame does this as well. Unfortunately though, Kurosame will not work on this fight. Maybe it's something to do with his Ice Imperil, because the boss is going to be immune to elemental imperil. So I think there's something attached to that, although it is kind of like a unique buff. They don't get affected by it. It's kind of weird, and I had the same issue back in JP, which I couldn't figure out why Kurosame doesn't work, but unfortunately it doesn't, and these are some of the characters that you can use. Alright guys, now moving on how this fight works. Now there are going to be HP thresholds once again. When you hit less than 80, 50, and 30% of the boss's HP, basically they will reduce your brave to 0 and they will get a massive brave gain. They will also enter this run wild mode, which you can tell there is going to be red auras. Now basically they get a stronger version, they get more aggressive, and they get a stronger version of their Tremor attack, which is a Tremor Plus, and this will now do guaranteed hits and will also deal multiple HP attacks. They also get like a instant break when you see the text moving to Devour, and they will be able to delay you once you see the ferocity increase. I do believe they have to break you and then they will delay. I didn't really see this, yeah, because I went with the delay tactic, which we will go through in a bit. Anyway, like I said earlier, the boss is going to be immune to elemental imperil, so that's probably why Kurosame's debuff doesn't work. I'm not 100% sure. Anyway, speaking of how to deal with the fight, I already said I went with the delay tactic because it just works. I think it's the safest tactic in this fight, and I encourage you to do it. Now, healers are definitely going to help you here, especially with those guaranteed HP attacks. However, those are run killers. They can kill your run, especially if you cannot reduce the amount of HP damage that you're taking. So tanks that can prevent a lot of HP damage from taking, and even Porum, can increase your overall HP and just, reduce the amount of damage you're taking is definitely going to help. Now, there is one character that can solve all your problems, and that is Setzer. With his freeze and his rainbow damage, basically, you solve both the problems. And he can delay too, so that's an extra bonus. Now the last thing that I would recommend is using debuffs such as paralysis, confuse, and stuff like that. They can really help you prepare for incoming damage, especially when you see that all attack and they have the red aura. It's a very scary moment, and if you can paralyze before you can delay or whatever the case may be, these kinds of debuffs will help you finish this fight. Okay guys, now let's move on to characters that you want to bring. Again, you can pause in this video, take a look at my list, but overall there's a lot of characters that I obviously haven't listed here. There's just so many characters. The biggest thing here is obviously just going to be like bringing characters that can deal with the Lufenia orb. So HP damage up debuff characters I already mentioned. Now for cult characters, there's not a whole lot. I would be a little bit more defensive in this one. Obviously, if you want to be offensive, that's fine too. If you are using Gabranth as your call and using his debuff for the Lufenia orb, the biggest thing here is to make sure that you have 4 debuffs on the boss. So I suppose having X-Death there, or Ferris, or Lion that can increase the amount of debuffs that you apply is definitely going to help. However, I would warn you that to make sure that you have Gabranth's debuff up first before you actually use the other debuffs. It might get to the point where you actually don't have enough space for all these debuffs, so be very careful. Alright guys, now let's talk about party compositions. Of course, the first one that I would recommend is the team that I went with Von, Setzer, and Agrius. Lion, X-Death, and Gabranth for my Cold team, and Cloud of Darkness for support, just for extra damage. Ramu for the summon, you know, just in case I need that paralysis. Although Agrius kind of fits in that role, and Setzer as well. It doesn't hurt to be very careful. Now the next team is going to be Zidane, Porum, and Agrius. Gabranth, Jack, and Cypher for the call, and once again Zidane for the support, and Ramu for the summon. I guess in this case Porum is going to be your failsafe when it comes to the damage. Agrius with her Confuse obviously really helps in the paralysis, the guaranteed paralysis. I believe it's 2 guaranteed now with her C65 ability, and you can still get some lucky paralysis here and there as well, but Porum is going to be your failsafe when it comes to the incoming HP damage. Alright guys, now for the final team composition is a little bit on the unconventional side, since this is going to require you to have Tidus, Core, and Setzer in your main team, and the biggest thing here is having Gao in your call team. Now Gao will have to be attached to Core because Core basically has to have the least amount of turns in this fight, and Tidus is a good turn manipulator and you can do that. So the idea is basically you use Gao on Core, and basically Core's off turn damage is going to be enough for you to increase the Lufenia orb counter. Now Gabranth I put here, but he's not completely necessary for this team. Basically, if you didn't pull for Gabranth, or you know you missed out on Gabranth, but if you have Gao, this can work. Now unfortunately Guy doesn't enchant the party with his calls, so it's not going to completely work. So the idea here is basically using Core's off turn damage to increase the Lufenia orb, and Setzer of course with his freeze and rainbow damage is definitely going to help, and Tidus is just there to manipulate the turns so you can increase the Lufenia orb. So I went with Ishtola for the summon, support here. However, you can definitely pick someone else. And as for the summon, I would probably go with Brothers here, since you know you are lacking kind of in that department, especially if you don't have Gabranth. Now like I said, I put Gabranth there because I do have him. I don't have Gao, but I know this team can work, and so you know you can, if you don't have Gabranth, just find someone else that can increase your overall damage or apply a debuff. Alright guys, we're finally at the end of this video, and of course I'll give you guys my final thoughts regarding this fight. Now this fight is one of those fights that is very restrictive in a way, especially if you haven't been pulling. You know, the Earth Elemental thing, there's only 2 characters that can do that, and honestly, out of the 2, Guy is probably the best one to be in your main team. Gao with his call ability, you will have to use his LD call, because that is the one that gives you the Earth Elemental, and that I think lasts for 3 turns or something like that. I'm not entirely sure, so it's very limited. And as for, you know, increase the HP damage with a debuff, now that Kurosame is not a good choice in this fight for some reason, you only have Gabranth, Agrius, and Sync of obviously as, you know, the characters that can do it. So it's a very limited team. I might be missing some characters, but I do believe these are the most viable ones. So this fight can be very restrictive and can be very hard if you haven't pulled for any of the characters. So overall though, for me, I didn't have any issues since I did get Gabranth earlier on, and you know, I do have Guy, but I didn't really see a reason of using him. So overall, for me, the fight was pretty okay. It wasn't that hard, but I can understand if you think this can be very hard for you, especially with how restrictive this fight can be. So yeah, that's basically it for my thoughts on the fight. Now, let's talk about the announcement. Okay, so basically, I'm here to warn you guys that videos might be coming later than usual, and the reason for this is basically starting next week there's a high possibility that I will be moved to or going back to the COVID ward. If you guys don't know, I work as a nurse here in Australia, and the numbers are starting to go back up again. And there's basically the hospital I'm working with is basically choking with all these suspicious COVIDs, and basically, you know, even in the ward where I work right now, we are basically dealing with these stuff every day, and it's getting pretty unsafe. So the hospital has decided that we are opening the COVID ward back up again, basically. And if you guys don't remember, last year I worked there, and the thing was that some videos did come in quite late, and because I was just too dang tired, and that's part of the reason why I stopped doing should you pull videos. Because one, well, the biggest reason was I just didn't see a point in it anymore, and two was it just gave me a little bit more time to relax, you know, and actually rest up. And so with this announcement that, you know, we are possibly going back up next week, I'm just basically giving you guys a warning that videos are going to be late. Yeah, that's basically it. That's basically what the announcement is. And I hope you guys do understand how stressful and, you know, how taxing it is for like healthcare workers to deal with these stuff. And yeah, that's basically it. So I hope this is like an apology in advance, and you know, it's just how the way things are working right now. So anyway, I think I'll end the video right here. So guys, please do remember to click like and subscribe if you haven't already, because it does help this channel, and I would really appreciate it as well if you can share this video to other DFFO players who are struggling to beat Lufenia fights, or I guess now it's Lufenia Plus fights, and hopefully this video can help them. And make sure to follow me on Twitter and on Facebook at Munchkins Gaming. Leave down in the comments below what your team was for this fight. And yeah, this is Munchkins logging off. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next level.